Hello everyone, welcome to the ONLE Networking Show. So we're going to bring you networking news, education and member spotlights from ONLE. We are the network for people that like people. I'm James West, co-founder of ONLE, joined by Kelly West, my wife and co-founder. Hello Kelly.
Hello.
We've got a special guest today, Gaz Morgan. I've said Gary twice now. I'm going to say Gaz from now on. Welcome Gaz.
Welcome.
Good to have you
Thank
on the
you.
show.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Fantastic. We're going to talk about some news. We're going to talk about what's going on in the world of networking. Busy time in networking, fragmented networking. We've already talked about this a little bit first. But I'm going to introduce Gary. So this is the bit we'll have to read out formally off of this.
But you called him Gary.
I just called him Gary again, okay?
Gaz.
It'll be all right.
It'll be all right.
He might hit me. No, he won't. He's a nice guy. So, Gaz is a sales and business coach who helps clients use emotional intelligence and Ikigai. We will talk about this book in due course. Ikigai principles to excel. He's also a keynote speaker, produces a podcast called Your Path to Purpose, and is the host of ONLE Crawley and our new group ONLE Brighton. And he's also an all-around top bloke. Gaz, welcome again to the show.
Thank you.
We're going to be asking you about this Ikigai stuff, purpose, your coaching role, but we're going to start off by talking about networking. Kelly, because we've got 3 new groups that we've just announced. We did talk about this on last month's show. So we've got Brighton, London, New York. London probably would have been gone by the time we start this. But let's talk about, because Gaz, you've been involved in these conversations as well. At ONLE this month, we've been talking about, courtesy of our education, using Zoom more effectively to network, because I think most of us have come to terms with the fact that we are going to do kind of hybrid networking, some in person, some in person. We've done in-person stuff over the summer, and I think it's been a fascinating kind of discussion through this last month, hasn't it? Because the consensus seems to be online. We asked people, didn't we? What's your preference for meetings now, one-to-ones? Is it in person? Is it over Zoom? Do you want to give us, has it surprised you?
Yeah, I think it has. I think it's surprised me even more so as the month's gone on. I mean, thinking particularly to the group, Gary's group, Crawley group, I think 100% of the people said online. And that was a moment where we thought, oh, crikey, this is changing. And I think what has surprised me most over the last couple of weeks in particular is the most dyed-in-the-wall, face-to-face, I hated Zoom or another medium, because there are other ones out there, are now saying, yeah, I do still really like that, but I don't have the time. And I will always probably use Zoom as my go-to, and then I'll back that up with in-person stuff. And I think that's changed massively over the last month. I think what we're seeing is people have been in this space for so long, it's really hard to not see the benefits ecologically. It's better for the planet, better for time, better for cost. There's too many things now.
But the result as well, I mean, I think this is what's coming quite apparent, Gaz, is that in-person was the only show in town. That's how we networked. And I think for a lot of people that perhaps have struggled to network online, they've gone back in person. Are they arguably making the same mistakes by kind of over-pitching? What's your observation?
I think absolutely. I think that, first of all, I think virtual networking or online networking is definitely the way to go forward. I'm not surprised really that 100% of the Crawley group that I host said they want to continue and they love the online networking. And that's predominantly, I think, because that group was launched during lockdown.
Yeah.
It was launched during lockdown, so they didn't know. We don't know any different. And we had the face-to-face coffee morning last week, and people were saying it was lovely to meet, and put a face to the body behind the camera, but they already felt that they knew enough about each other. They knew enough about me about them, each other. And I think that's a massive benefit, that the reach now is so much more. And I used to think you could only do business once you met people face to face, press the flesh. Press the flesh? Press the flesh is what we used to talk about in sales terms. And now I don't think you need to do that. You can build trust online. But one of the things that I think, one of the reasons people struggle with it is because they haven't put the same amount of development into their online presence that they have with their face-to-face.
Yes.
So with their face-to-face, when they had probably had some presentation skills training. They probably mastered their pitch, so to speak, their face-to-face pitch, their handshake, all of those things from a young business age. If we're lucky, we've been taught those things. And whereas online, we're all thrust on it. And I don't think some people who don't enjoy it, it's not because they don't see the benefit, it's because they find it really hard to actually just look into the camera, talk to people as I'm doing now, and rather they try to kind of just be the same that they were, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts, really, Jay.
We've talked about this time. So in terms of what you're saying, Gaz, people are trying to do what they did before, but they're not, are they? We talked about the education this month is about just pure networking skills. What's the difference between the way people, or the time investment that people had when they do face-to-face compared to, if you're not careful, just boxing off a 90-minute meeting?
I think it's two things. The importance that you put on it. So I think people, and probably still at this moment in time, are putting more importance to the face-to-face in some respects, which they shouldn't be, because as you've said, or as Gaz has said, if I'm presenting online to 20 or 30 people, if I'm in a room with 20 or 30 people, I should be behaving the same way, and I should have a cohesion across my brand, shouldn't I? Yeah. They shouldn't see me in a different way just because of the medium I'm using. So I think a bit more attention to detail with your appearance, with your background, with the way you're talking, with the interaction, the attention you're paying. But also, you know, take ONLE as an example. So we're a monthly meeting, so that's 90 minutes of your time. Most people, I would say, rock up 2 or 3 minutes before the meeting because it's online. They've not prepared. They've not got a drink. They've not got their paper ready. They're not mentally prepared for the meeting. Whereas if you're going in person, you've got the drive there. You've probably got a bit of time to compose yourself. And we should probably factor that time in and have the importance of what that online meeting is for you, because it can give you the same results if you treat it the same way. So 90 minutes a month as opposed to maybe you go weekly networking. Might be a BNI member and you might go weekly, so that might be 90 minutes a week. Well, automatically you're putting in 4 times more effort into that channel than you are the other one. So, you know, only BNI, Network My Club, there's loads. Whatever network you do, it doesn't matter. But I do think you need to readdress the effort and the time and the attention you're giving it.
Yeah, and particularly the follow-ups, isn't it? Because a lot of people are waiting for something to happen. But again, if you're in an in-person event, you're going to have a chat with someone afterwards. It's very rare that you just used to pack up and leg it out the door. You probably had that conversation, but perhaps people aren't doing that online.
I think so. I think they tend to. I think follow-up has always been a problem with networking. And one of the phrases I often use is the treasure is always in the follow-up. 100%. Yep. You know, the relationship isn't built on a one interaction. It's built in that in those one-to-ones, and you sharing a bit more about you, getting to know each other, etc. So I think that's a big thing. And the other thing that has kind of come to me as well is that we've had kind of near on a year and a half of no face-to-face networking. And bearing in mind, I know of people who never really found networking easy in the beginning. Now they've had a year and a half off. And even those seasoned networkers, I've spoken to them, and even they are now, and I've been doing some work with some of them on their presentation skills, etc., networking, because they feel like they're starting from scratch. So I think that's another reason why face-to-face isn't quite clicking for people at the moment as well, is because they're not in that swing of, and they've not brushed up on their skill set on how to present their business, their service, whatever it may be. So I think it's a combination of things, really.
I think there's also a lot of latent kind of frustration from people. We met a couple of people at a face-to-face event who said to me, I've really missed in-person networking. The online doesn't work. People don't listen to me. And all they did for the whole time I was with them is pitch at me, because they're waiting for that opportunity, aren't they? Oh, it's not been working online. If you're just going to pitch at me and not ask me one question, by the way, that will foul equally as hard in person as it will online. It's about the approach, isn't it, Gaz?
100%. I think Kelly mentioned about your brand and about your property and how you come across. You know, think about that. You know, when you go to an online meeting, are you going ready? Are you looking the part? whatever that is, by the way. Looking the part doesn't mean suited and booted, by the way. It could equally mean in a hoodie and a tracksuit or whatever. If that's what you are or who you are, then there's nothing wrong with that. But your background and, you know, if you're playing around, you've got to think about people are looking at you. And if you've got something behind you that's going to be quite distracting, you might think it's funny, you might think it's humorous, but actually, if you are then providing a serious business offering and you've got some jokey thing behind you, there's this incongruence that then occurs, isn't there? Where people don't take you seriously, even though you may be the best of whatever you do. So whereas we wouldn't necessarily go to a face-to-face and put a funny thing behind us just to get a laugh. So why did we do it online? Yeah. And then we worry, or we then say online networking doesn't work. And I think that's the problem, really, is that people are looking at it as two completely different things. Whereas really, it's all about being a human being. There's just different mediums.
It's like the equivalent of wearing a silly hat to get attention. You could argue that these shoes are a bit to get these worked, though.
It has worked.
So those shoes are great. If they did them in a size 10, I might even give them a go. Right? Who knows? You know, it's not like I need the extra 3 or 4 or 6 inch. I don't know what they are. But they do look great.
But roll that back a bit, guys, and I think just think about the way the world has been. I think this is a bit of a case of we've thrown it all up in the air, we've watched it all land, and we're just scrabbling around to pick bits up, because I actually think networking goes a little bit deeper than this now, and that it will fragment even more, because we're all hearing about time. I've got no time. And I have this conversation all the time. It's 90 minutes a month, guys. If you can't give 90 minutes a month, you're really not in the right place, because that's all it's going to take you to build some great connections. And if you're not in the right space for it, it doesn't matter if it's 9 minutes. It's not the right space, of course. But the point here is, what else am I doing? Is the business working? Is my messaging working? Because we've said this before. If your message isn't right, it doesn't matter how many people you tell it to, it's not going to resonate, is it? So I think we do need to be mindful that the networking landscape have changed. And also, furloughs coming to an end. You know, this is very timely at the moment. Lots of businesses will see really bad financial times coming up, more so maybe than they would have done back at the beginning. I don't think you're going to see the same people at networking as you did before. A bit like in the old days, isn't it? We used to go to the pub and they'd all be in the same pub. Yeah. You'd see everyone in the same pub and you could go there. Youth of today, sound like my mum now, don't get that experience, do they? Because they've got 15 pubs they could go to and meet these people. And I think it will be the same for networking. Yeah. And we particularly are seeing more and more people that have never networked before, because it's become this whole new landscape and a new place to go and market my business. And that's changed massively. Yeah.
And it's really helped us in terms of working out where ONLE sits as a network, isn't it? Because we're going pretty much fully as an online network. You know, we announced last summer that we do only experiences, so in-person stuff. The problem is, we've realised, haven't we, have we potentially alienated people by putting on these events? Just talk about that a bit, Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I put that, again, similar for a lot of networks that are national. We reach as far as Tyne and Wear, down to Dorchester, across to Brighton, and lots in the middle. Tonight, we're going to see Bond. We're dressed up because we're going to go and watch Bond with some of the Dorset members down in Bournemouth.
Don't break the illusion. We always dress up.
We always dress up. But,
I do.
Yeah, against us. But Gaz has driven 2 hours to get here. He's not going to drive another hour to get to Bournemouth to then leave that at 10 to drive potentially 3 hours back. So he's seeing that from an outsider's perspective, still within the community. Have we made that accessible to him? No, we haven't. We've kind of singled a few people out in order to go and have a night out. Now, it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crawley had a coffee meeting. You could argue that some of the Tyne and Wear people might go, oh, gosh, that's never going to be accessible to us. So it's about how we can make it pockets of groups of things going on within the network in order to make it accessible to all. Because let's face it, again, there's more people than ever not wanting to go out still.
That's been surprising, the amount of people that said, don't want to meet in person. And I think there's quite a strong message there, isn't it? If you're in that camp and you're thinking, I'm looking on LinkedIn and everyone's going back and doing in-person networking, you don't have to. If you don't want to do it, you didn't have a choice before. And we've talked about this before. Networking used to be particularly favouring the extroverts, the people that were comfortable speaking publicly, online networking lets you be a little bit more reflective. If you are on the more introverted side, you can take your time. You can choose who you have one-to-ones with. You don't necessarily get backed into the corner. Don't beat yourself up if you don't want to go. And that's what the market that we're looking towards, isn't it? If you want to go and, you know, dance around and be loud, that's absolutely fine. But we want to be an inclusive network.
And I think the great thing about ONLE is the 1, 2, 3s, really, because that's where I've got probably most of my benefit from ONLE, is not necessarily just your host group.
Can we just explain what that is?
Yeah, go for it.
Shall I?
Yeah, you do that, because you
that
do it
bit.
better than I.
This is one of the great things about online networking. We realised quite early on Breakout Rooms, if you've ever used Zoom, we decided, because we do breakout one-to-ones within each meeting, we decided, hang on, this is quite an easy thing to put on. It's a great way to connect people from across the network. So every Monday we do a session called Only 1, 2, 3, and we just invite members from all the groups. They all come in together and we randomly assign them 15-minute breakout rooms. Great way to get away from your natural propensity to go, oh, I want to speak to that person because they might be helpful. Why is that a bad thing to do, Gaz?
I think it's the equivalent of that person that pins you down at a face-to-face, isn't it, and pitches at you. And that's not what we're about. You know, I don't want to be that kind of person. I am passionate about what I do and who I want to help, etc. But we have to be careful that passion doesn't transmit into pushiness, into backing people into a corner. And with the only 1, 2, 3, what I was going to say is that it opens up your network. So whereas before, when you did do face-to-face networking, it was very much a geographical landscape, if you like, wasn't it? Whereas now, you know, I've met people, you know, from Tyne and Wear. I'm not driving to nothing against Newcastle, right? But I'm not driving up to Tyne and Wear for a networking meeting or for a one-to-one. It's not going to happen. And yet I've built some really good relationships with some of the people up there. Never met them.
Yeah.
Will I meet them? Maybe at some point. But it's not a prerequisite for me then to go and build a relationship with them and to even potentially do business with them.
Well, you said earlier you've changed your attitude towards this, Gaz, didn't
massively.
you? And you mentioned a client quite far away. Explain that.
Yeah, so for me, I always used to be, as a sales coach, I used to say it's really important that you go and meet your prospective client or your existing clients face to face. We used to talk about it being press in the flesh, is what we used to say. And that was really important. I genuinely thought that was critical to the sales funnel, whatever sales funnel you follow. And what I've realised in the last year and a half is that doesn't matter. You can build trust online. So one of my clients, it's a Chinese company. They found me online, found my website, read a blog, saw me in action in a video that's on my website, got in touch with me. So they're already pre-qualified. Really, they'd already decided, by the time they got in touch with me, they had decided that I was the coach that they wanted to work with. So it was an easy, you know, I would never have said that. So my landscape in terms of geography now is international.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was talking to a couple of members, Alan and Emily Braithwaite, this morning, and they were talking about yellow tuxedo, yeah. And they were saying about we're all, you know, whether you're a cake shop on a corner or somewhere, or you're a coach or whatever you are, we're all international now. And I hadn't really considered that before, you know, because international for me meant me jumping on a plane and going to Estonia or whatever it may be, you know, whereas now I have a huge reach. Yeah. And I love that because that then fits in with my purpose in helping people, right? So, and I think that is the critical thing. You can build really good relationships, solid relationships, and do business without meeting somebody face to face. But you've got to make sure that you've got everything out there for those people to touch.
Yes.
You know,
that's such a good point, isn't it? Which leads us to New York, doesn't it? Really, you know, if you speak to business owners in New York or in the UK and say, would you like to have clients in the UK or New York? And they go, yeah. Okay. Can you sell to those people? Yeah, I absolutely can. Why not? Well, The only thing that's been lacking from our perspective is the forum to bring those people together. What do if there are people watching, listening on the podcast and thinking, yeah, but I still don't believe that. I don't think you can build relationships, meaningful relationships. Have you got a sense of why it's not working for them, Kelly?
Yeah, probably because that's a limiting belief that they've got within themselves, because they've not tried it, or they've gone at it at the wrong angle. They might have had a bad experience. They might not have liked the channel that they'd picked. Claire Hartnell, one of our members, messaged me the other day and said, we've got to get out of this conversation. It's like the weather conversation, isn't it? When we used to talk to people before and go, oh, weather's good, bad,
Yeah.
we're very British. Now we go, have I met you in person? Haven't I?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I've still met you. I've still built a relationship with you. I've still built a connection with you. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So true.
So true. I've still started that forming of that relationship. So I would suggest that, listen, if you don't like it, if you absolutely hate it, if you're not prepared to put any time or effort or education into it, don't. Because you're not going to want to enjoy it and you're coming at it from the wrong starting point. But if you've had a bad experience, at least give it another go, because you are so missing out on potential. And it's actually been, you talking about New York, I've got a call with a guy tomorrow. We launched the US website, and straight away 2 people want to call to join. They don't even want to talk about visiting. They want to call to join. That's stateside, because, and all I can assume is they're waiting for a channel to be able to get involved with us.
Yeah.
And there isn't anything out there at the moment. So it's actually really exciting, isn't it? Great for our members, because as a community, they're ready to go.
Absolutely. And I think that it is that belief that holds people back. It's, if something isn't working for you, then you've got to, surely you've got to change it.
Yep.
Right? And it just reminded, as you was talking about that, it reminded me of being back at school. And I've got to. We haven't spoken about this, but I'm going to share this with you.
Oh wow! What's going to be?
I know it's dodgy. No, it's not dodgy. So what happened when I was about 14?
Robert getting nervous.
I'm getting nervous. I'm thinking I've opened a can of worms here. But when I was about 14, 15, I fell in love for the very first time at school, and it was this girl called Samantha. And I didn't know it was love.
Do you want to change this name?
No, it's fine, because there's loads of Samanthas. I mean, it could be anybody, right? Her name was Samantha.
But you know it's you, Samantha, don't you?
And I never knew it was love, but every time I saw her, when I was walking through the place, my heart was doing all this funniness that I'd never experienced before. And then I knew, there's something special in this girl. Anyway, so then stupidly I tell some friends, oh, you fancy Sam, don't you? Oh, yeah. Giggling around as kids do, teenagers. And they said, go on, Gaz, ask her out, ask her. I was like, no, I'm not asking her. No. Eventually, there would be many mornings where I think, right, I'd be getting myself ready for school, get my blazer on, and I'd walk out the door thinking, right, I'm going to ask Sam today. I'm going to ask her out. And then I'd see her and I'd freeze. It's like, no, it's wrong day, wrong time. No, it's not going to happen. Eventually, I don't know how long this went on for, but eventually I asked her out. I said, Sam, because this is back in the 80s, right? I'm old. But back in the 80s, I said to her, Sam, would you go out to the pictures with me? Oh. The pictures, right? Would you come to the pictures with me as my girlfriend or something? I said something stupidly like that.
Smooth.
She said, no. We're supposed to laugh. Right? I mean, I'm tall, dark and handsome. Well, tall and dark. Right? And she said no. And I can honestly say, as funny as it is now, at that time as a 14, 15-year-old, I felt as if my whole world had collapsed. It really affected me negatively to the point where I remember saying, I ain't never asking another girl out again. Never. Which left me a couple of options. A girl would have to ask me out. Probably not going to happen. So eventually I did get back and start asking girls out. And the reason I'm saying that, if I'd let that really bad experience of being told no define me, I wouldn't have had some of the wonderful relationships I've had. I've got 4 wonderful children, 7 grandchildren.
Wow.
All of that I would never have had if I'd never put myself back in a similar situation. Yeah. So the reason I'm saying that story is because I think a lot of people, even with something as simple as networking, they try it, oh, it didn't work for me. I tried online, didn't work for me. Well, that's the equivalent of asking a girl out at the age of 14, 15, being told no, and never asking another girl out again. It sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? But that's what people do. So there's a bit more about me.
Better example. The only show than that. And Sam, you missed out. He's awesome. You want to see his car? It's incredible.
Sam's seen it. He's seen it.
What's the behaviour though? You know, like let's be a bit stereotypical. So the people that are saying don't work, can't build relationships via networking or particularly online, be a bit nasty. What do they typically do?
I don't like to be nasty, but typically they'll say they want to talk to anyone who does anything remotely, anything to do with what I might have spoken about. They will say, I want to talk to all of you, so I'm open to one-to-ones with all of you in this room. Somebody's got to make the first move, so why shouldn't it be you? They might be quite vague on their messaging.
Yeah.
They probably don't really resonate. So as a viewer or visitor, if I can't clearly work out what it is you're doing, how do I know I want to then come and have a talk to you about it? It shouldn't be up to me to talk to you in order to find out what you do. It should be easy enough to explain what you do for me to then work out whether there's synergy and I want to take that forward.
Yeah.
I think if there's too much talk, they say this, or 2 ears, 1 mouth, use it in proportion, yeah? So I think if you're not listening... Yeah,
I think that's a really great... And I'll tell you what that's just reminded me of is that...
Is this going to be another story?
It's not another story. It's not another story, but what it is...
I sort of want it to be. Though,
I'm sorry, not another story, but it's that attention span.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to understand that I think people's attention span, face-to-face, is probably stronger or they last longer than online. I think there is an element of that. So we need to make sure that our pitch, our message, you called it, Kelly, you're saying about the messaging. The message has got to be clear. Yeah. And I think that's what's great about online. That's what I found last week by meeting up on the coffee with the guys when we had the coffee morning, was because I was then able, I think my message has got better because I've had to do it online for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
And the other great thing is if you're turning up once a month for your networking meeting, you've got 12 opportunities. That's if you only do those. You've got 12 opportunities to change your message, and you can literally watch the response. Whereas when you do that message face to face, you're doing it maybe to you two, and then I might get a response back, possibly not. Whereas online, you get so much really good feedback, whether it's landed or it's not landed. So if the message has landed, you normally find that at the end of the meeting, people say, oh, I'd like to have a one-to-one with, and then you know your message, somehow something's landed. So you can bring that to the next meeting.
People are more brutal online. I think in person, if you told me your introduction and it didn't resonate, I'd probably still be nodding my head and going, oh, that's great.
I don't think you would. I think your face would give it away.
Actually, yeah, but I think online, people don't even try and hide. If they're bored, they'll just go over here and do something else. We've said this, haven't we? Who do you remember online? The people that monologue and keep saying the same thing in a slightly different way because they're desperate to get your attention, or the person that succinctly says what they do and then spends the rest of their time showing you that they're listening? That's actually the better...
But is that not how social media works? We talk about this. Give attention to gain attention. You know, and it's no different, is it? So you're never going to get enough time to do your intro and impart all the information you want to impart in that short space of time, whether you're timed, whether it's 60 seconds or not. So don't try. Just be engaging enough and friendly enough that people will want to further a conversation with you.
Unless your message is really precise. Just say, I'm here to meet people.
Yeah.
I'd love to learn about your businesses. I mean, that's often enough, and not many people do that, do they?
Yeah. Definitely.
No, I might use that next week.
There we go. I think you're all right anyway.
I might. Oh, thanks.
There we go. So, yes, well, we've got New York to look forward to. Hopefully Brighton, which you'll be hosting.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. And I think, you know, for those of you that are in the Brighton area, then look out for the marketing, the promotions, and come and join us. Get in touch, and we'd love to have you joining us at ONLE Brighton as well as ONLE Crawley as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, so we talked about the Ikigai book earlier and purpose. So, Gaz, we just want to ask you about that. Why, you know, as a coach, sales coach specifically, that doesn't sound like it's massively connected. Why is purpose? And tell us about Ikigai and purpose for you.
Yeah, so I came across Ikigai some years ago. So I say always, for a long time, I've had an interest in Japanese philosophy. And the first thing I came across was something called Kaizen, which really, it kind of means continuous improvement. And being in learning and development and coaching, self-development, I kind of liked that. I thought, oh, I like that. And I looked into it a bit more, and I was using that as a methodology with the clients that I was working with. And then I came across Ikigai and suddenly realized that, that's why I do what I do. That's why when people say they want to retire, and I'm saying, but I don't want to retire, I now know it's because I've found my Ikigai. So your Ikigai is your purpose, or what gets you out of bed with excitement. That's what it really is. What motivates you, what makes you feel excited and gives you that energy rather than depletion. If you're in a job right now, whether it's your own business or whether it's, you're employed, and you are counting down. I've had 2 clients that have got this. They've got an app on their phone that counts down to their retirement date.
Wow.
And and at first I was like, I kind of laughed because I thought, wow, you're crazy. Mm. But actually now, having worked with them, and we've worked through that and they haven't got the app anymore, but I found it really quite sad, really, that you can be living your life and yet ticking off, can't wait to get to retirement so you can then live your life. And so for me, it's about living your life now. I don't believe we get, other opportunities to live out. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I just don't believe it. I believe this is our life. I don't believe it's a rehearsal. So you better make sure that you enjoy it while you can, because life is bloody short. Mm. So where does it fit into your business? Well, if you're a business owner and you know your purpose, your Ikigai, you know the thing that excites you. And if it's the thing that you're currently doing, great. That's going to serve you really well. However, if you work for a company, so I work with a lot of sales professionals, and you asked me the question, James, that how does Ikigai, purpose, fit into sales, really? Well, it's the same thing again. If you're enjoying being a sales professional, if you know that's what you want to do, that's your purpose, you love the whole getting somebody that's maybe not interested and asking some really good questions and getting them interested to the point where they then want to do business with you, and that excites you and that kind of passion, then you found your Ikigai. Nice. And that's why it's so important in anything you do in your life, whether you're self-employed, whether you're a director of a huge corporate, or whether you're an employee, it's absolutely critical, in my opinion, that you find your Ikigai. And not only find it, you need to be living it.
Yes. It's a challenge though, isn't it? And I'm very aware of the people, because I was certainly in this position where it's like, oh, that's great, but for me, my business, I have to earn money.
Yeah.
So money has to come first. Isn't it a luxury to run a business based on an intended purpose?
I can see. I totally get that. But I think the thing is what I've seen is when your Ikigai, and if you use your Ikigai, because you don't have to, by the way, all of this Venn diagram business that you may have seen in certain books is, for me, it's wrong. Okay. All right, because that is a Western take on Ikigai. Something you're good at, something you're passionate about, something that people are willing to pay you for. There's people that have found their Ikigai and they're never going to make money from it. Yeah. And that's fine. I'm just saying that for me, I've found mine, and it just so happens it's all about people, and people will pay me for it. But it's not a prerequisite for me to be a coach. So I guess what you're saying there is that is it a luxury? Not really. It's actually, if you can make money from your Ikigai, then that's the magic. Yeah. That's where the gold really is in life. A bit like you guys, I would say you found your purpose. The way you come across, you work crazy hours, but but it doesn't feel like crazy hours most of the time because you enjoy it. Yeah. Whereas when you worked in corporate world or when you've worked in other businesses, it's felt like a slog. Why? Yeah. Because it didn't fit your purpose. There's no end goal necessarily apart from making, a bit of money.
It's so true, isn't it? I mean, we know this. If you're just building a networking business, and it is hard, we worked for years on this business without even paying ourselves, didn't we? Very much a labour of love. If you just based it on, I want to build a network to make money, you're going to run out of steam. For us, I mean, but yours is slightly different. It's probably worth talking about Ken, but for me, connection. It's all about meaningful connection because I spent so long working on my own and being very unhappy. That's so important, and it's in Ikigai that it talks about the need for connection. If you lack that in your life, you feel, your life can be very vacuous. It's bad for mental health. So for me, what drives me is I want to make sure everyone's got connection where they don't feel pressured to refer or they have to do certain activities. Do you know what I mean? Because that negates that thing. That's what drives me.
I've got a question. Do you think that Ikigai can change?
I think, 100%. And here's the other thing that I've found, because I'm on this journey still. It's not like, Gary's the Ikigai coach now. Gaz has got life all mapped out. He's got its. I'm on a journey, and I love that. And I think that I'm learning new things. And something that's even recently is, I think not only can your Ikigai potentially change, I'm not so sure it changes so much, but you can have more than one Ikigai. You can certainly have more than one. And I think that may change. That's been a game changer for me, an eye-opener. I always thought that the whole coaching thing and helping people, that was my Ikigai. But actually, I've had a knee operation recently, and it's meant I haven't been able to run. And I've realised that actually running is also an Ikigai for me. I love running. I love it. I just think it's good for my mental health. It's good for my physical health. So many benefits. You end up seeing lots of different places. If you're going and running in events, you get to meet different people. Yeah. The spectators and the support you get at a lot of those kind of events. Yeah. It's all, so that gives me that energy, that passion as well. So I think that's a great question, and it certainly can be more than it can change, I guess. But it can also, you can have several. And
it doesn't have to be that grand. I think there's this perception, isn't there, with, and it's not the book's fault, Start With Why, Simon Sinek, great book, but I think it leans you towards, I've got to do something worthy or world changing. I mean, it's relative to you, isn't it? If that might plug into what you're doing, but fundamentally it's got to feel personal, and it might be something as simple as running.
Exactly. And also I think the other thing is, again, I think the Simon Sinek book, Starting With Why, it's renowned, it's a bestseller. Most people who have ever looked at self-development are probably aware of it. The problem I fundamentally have with that particular book is it asks, as you said, a really big question. Unfortunately, I don't think it gives the answer. And it's not about knowing your why as much as how. How do I? Because like you said, if I need to earn money,
how can I get to that
it's all very well, my why is this, but I can't afford that why. So then what do you do? So this is where, self-awareness comes. This is where the emotional intelligence side of thing comes in for me. So we look at an individual's emotional intelligence, where they're strong, where they're lacking in some areas. And then what we're able to do is highlight, work on their strengths, also work on their weaknesses. And through that, self-awareness, because that's what they gain, when we then put that with action, we end up with personal and professional development, which often leads to some form of Ikigai. Often.
We've found this, haven't we? Because we, quite happily to say, Gary's coached us, hasn't he? And what Gary's done very well is bring us as individuals into it, because a lot of coaching is based on this kind of, these are the principles, this is what you need to apply to your business, but it doesn't take into account that we're individuals. And we're going to fight against some of that or struggle because of our personality, and you're very good at working that bit out, aren't you?
I think so, and I think because ultimately, why is the business there? So when we talk about Ikigai, I talk about purpose. You know, what is the purpose of ONLE? What is the purpose of Gary Morgan Coaching? What is the purpose of Pulse 8? You know, or whatever, you know, the name of the business is. Why have you set that business up? And if you don't know why you set it up, that's fine, because sometimes we do just stumble across and start a business. But have you reflected on it now? And if you haven't, then I'd really encourage you to start doing that now, because if you can find the purpose, then everything else tends to fall into place. That's where you can start knowing where to find your customers, your clients. So I come from a sales perspective. You know, do I do all of the other stuff that other coaches do? To a degree, yes. But really, I think if you can't sell your business, I don't care how great and how many processes you've got, how many steps there are and all of this stuff. If you fundamentally cannot sell your business, you are screwed.
And purpose is so important, because let's be honest, you can absolutely set up a business whose purpose is to make money. Absolutely. And that's fine, but don't expect it to resonate with anyone or get anyone else excited or be in the course. We need to talk about Kennedy, because I've mentioned. Do you want to just mention how she links in to our purpose?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, when you talk about it, something so close that you have to think about, how do I talk about this? I choose that on purpose, so not many people know that Kennedy, our youngest daughter, is disabled, special educational needs. I could see that as a limit to what I can do in terms of time, pressures. I choose not to. I'm very lucky because of the network we've got around us and the support, etc. But for us to use ONLE as a vehicle to bring able-bodied, able-minded business owners together to then potentially help people like Kennedy, we can come up with a business idea, we can try it, it might work, it might not, we'll come up with another one. Kennedy and the people she's at school with and the people she will come in contact with will never have that. At best might get a job in a garden centre or, you know, a till job at best. Yeah. So how can we as business owners help these guys? Give them still their best potential. You know, Kennedy will still need interview techniques. She'll still need to know what to wear when she goes. And Kerry, Julie and there's other stylists in the group could give time to that. Yeah. So for us, our purpose is we don't look at that as a business owner. Unless you are touched with a child or a contact in that world, you don't even think about it. So for me, my purpose is very much bringing those two worlds together.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Not for everyone, but that for me.
But it gives it a solidity and it feels something tangible, doesn't it? Because for me, there's a mental health side to that, because it's a great reminder to when you're getting stressed and you're thinking, oh, poor me. Yeah. Look at people like that. Look at their situation, and it makes you think, come on, there's a bigger picture here. Don't take it too seriously. So. Again, and I think people pick up on this subconsciously, don't they? They pick up if you've got something genuine behind what you're doing. Have you seen that?
Absolutely. I think this whole thing about being your authentic self, you know, it's something we hear a lot of now, isn't it? You've got to be your authentic self. Well, I find it a little bit weird, really. If people are saying, oh, I need to be my authentic self, I'm bringing my authentic... Surely, if you're being authentic, shouldn't that kind of come across without me having to even put it in my website copy, in my pitch, in my everyday conversation? Do I need to be talking about me? Surely it's a feeling, it's the emotion, it's the energy. Again, because I believe in there is something called a universal energy. I do believe that. And I think that's where you get aligned, and this law of attraction and all of this sort of thing. I mean, the way in which our world's kind of entered is not normal in the sense of things, but
that sounds really ominous. You better qualify.
Well, I suppose only in the sense
we just met through online networking.
Yeah, we did. Well, yes, but it was what it led to. So I don't know if you remember, but we met at Network My Club. Yeah. So I was a member there. You were guest speakers. Yeah. I got to speak to Kelly before you went on stage, if you like, to become speakers, and I just really clicked. What was weird was at the time I was looking to set up a local network, and with two other guys, and I was looking around and I was thinking, how can it look, how can it feel, and then I come across you two. You know, I met Kelly online. Then you did the guest speaker spot on Network My Club. We then arranged to talk afterwards. And I was sold because everything you were saying about networking aligned to the network that I kind of wanted to start. So it sort of saved me a whole load of work. Thank you. And I've met some amazing people through it. So that's what I mean is I think that is where the law of attraction can occur. So for some people, this is all a little bit mumbo jumbo. And I would have said that 8 years ago. I would have said this is all, it's all like a bit hippie stuff, isn't it? But it is really powerful. But you've got to slow down and you've got to look at yourself and your business and you've got to decide, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Who are you doing it for? And when you get the answers to those 3 questions, why, what, and who, then the magic tends to happen. That's what I've found. Amazing. And that's what many of my clients find as well.
It's a great point to end, isn't it? We could talk all day. Gaz, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
So this has been the ONLE Networking Show. Thanks for watching or listening. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you again next month.